Shit, I forgot the chicken. God damn it. Hold that thought. I have to go back to the grocery store. Fuck. Okay, back from Publix, and first of all, I hate going to Publix because they're so overpriced, it's ridiculous. Yes, the store's clean and the customer service is nice and blah, 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 blah. They charge so much money for their produce and their meat. It's crazy. I went in, I got Greek yogurt, 1 lime, and 4 pounds of chicken. I just spent $40. That shit's crazy. So let's talk about the recipes I have going for the week. And when you guys are trying to plan out your menu, don't get overwhelmed with trying to create like so much variety and like this huge fancy cuisine. Keep it simple when you're new to macros and kind of taking that approach to learning how much food you're supposed to be eating, working towards a goal. But focus on the protein first. So you want to make sure that you have enough protein for the day, enough protein for the week. That's going to be your foundation of all your meals. So pick out all your protein recipes, whether it's chicken, shrimp, beef, whatever it is. Pick all that out. That is step 1. After you have your protein, you have enough for the day, enough for several days, that's close to your macro target. Then you pick out your carbs, okay? You add your carbohydrates. Make sure you add in some vegetables and fruit and some produce, and then you add in some extra starch if you need it, you know, whether that's rice or potatoes, bread, pasta, whatever you're doing. Add on the carbs second, and then you go back through and make sure you have enough fat in the meal. Now, if your protein source is a fattier source of protein, let's say beef, or using a lot of eggs with the yolks and stuff like that, full fat yogurt, things like that, you may have enough fat in that meal combined with the rest of your meals for that day to hit your fat targets. But if not, you may end up having to, sorry, this camera is really shaking, add some fat to the meal. And you can do that by way of the oils you're cooking with, adding some avocado, guacamole, cheese, dairy, nut butters, things like that. So first, foundation number 1 is the protein. Second, add the carbs. Third, make sure you have enough fat. If there's not enough in the meal itself with the protein, add it in. So let's look at what we have for this week. So we have bacon. Again, breakfast is kind of cooked on the fly. We've got 2% Greek yogurt, plain, not vanilla, because I use it for recipes. We've got Brussels sprouts for sides, jasmine rice. We do a lot of jasmine rice for our carbs. A ton of chicken for both that Crockpot recipe and that ranch recipe, and then some left over for just plain grilled stuff. Some strawberries, baby arugula, spinach, a lot of mixed greens. My husband's gonna have some chicken salad he's gonna make. Chicken broth for one of the recipes. And then I got some wraps. This is what I'm doing for my breakfast this week. Doing some breakfast wraps, eggs, salsa, cheese, and a couple extra things in there. Ground beef for the tacos. Again, green beans, let's see, some more sprouts. Cheese for that Nacho Bake recipe, also for my burritos. Egg whites to add in some extra protein to my breakfast burritos in the morning. Let's see, got the ranch packages for that ranch chicken. Of course, plenty of eggs, bell peppers, a bunch of different kinds of salsa. Got that mango peach one for that Crockpot recipe. Canned corn for one of the recipes, and then these are the chips. So let's get organized first. I'm actually going to do a voiceover. I've never done this before, so should be interesting. But as far as making food prep as efficient as possible, so you're not wasting time and going back and forth and kind of feel like you have this huge list to do, prep your proteins first. So look at all of your recipes, all the foods you're going to be preparing, all the ingredients, and prepare your proteins before you actually start getting the recipe going. So cut up your meats, trim the fat, cut it into pieces that they're supposed to be, and just make that easier for yourself. And that way you can clean and you can be done with touching and prepping raw meats. You can clean your countertops and don't have to deal with going back and forth. Then you need to prep all of your vegetables and produce. And I have recruited my sexy husband here. He's hating this right now because I'm harassing him right now, talking about his man bun. But if you can, have someone else help you, jump in. If not, protein first, then prep all of your vegetables and cut them up as needed, portion them out, wash them, peel them, whatever needs to be done so you can just get going. And then I always have rice going in the background. We have a rice cooker. I love it. It makes the house smell like popcorn. So I make 4 to 6 cups of rice every time. That's done every couple of days for us because we go through so much of it. So you pop that in the rice cooker, push the button, and it does it for you. It turns it off when it's done cooking. A lot more prepping here. We've got Brussels sprouts, a really good recipe that I will talk about later. And then we have one of the recipes, a Crockpot one from the RP cookbook. It's the mango peach chicken. And I love Crockpot because you literally pour everything in and it's done for like 4 or 5 hours. You don't have to do anything. And I just realized that I only bought enough chicken after all that for just the Crockpot recipe. So at least we'll have that. Calls for 4.5, ended up being, I only bought 4 pounds. So we'll just stick with that and the Nacho Bake. We have the rest of our breakfast stuff prepped, so I'll get the chicken and I'll have to cook it tomorrow. I can show you guys then, but for now we have 2 main protein pack recipes and we have all the sides and stuff that are going on at the same time. So luckily for us, everything that needed to be cooked in the oven is done at 350 degrees, so I set that. Continuing to prep vegetables, chopping up some peppers, getting ready to throw this into the Nacho Bake recipe, which is another awesome recipe we're trying this week. Again, from the newest RP Diet Cookbook. It's their second one. I think it's called Feast or something like that. So I am coating the pan with a little bit of coconut oil, and this is such a small amount for such a huge batch of food that I'm not going to worry about trying to add this in, okay? If you're trying to be super, super tedious and manage your fats, then you can, say I did 1/8 of a tablespoon for your portion, but just don't worry about a little bit of cooking oil. Now, if you coat the whole pan and put, half a cup of oil in there, then I'd say, one, that's gross and you have a problem. But don't worry about little stuff like that. So browning the meat, cooking it with the peppers, tossing. Okay, so Brussels sprouts. We just kind of made this recipe up. We roast them in the oven first, a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. And then while that's roasting in the oven, I make a sauce to toss with afterwards. And that has sriracha, a little bit of honey, and soy sauce, and a lot of garlic. So these will roast for a little while. And then we'll take them out, toss them with the sauce, and put them back in. And you'll see that in a little bit. And there's our little loosey-goosey. She is always ready for any scrap, anything that falls on the ground. She's our vacuum. Green beans, we're going to steam those for a little bit. So I tend to steam those for 4 to 5 minutes, and then I will toss those in a separate sauce as well. So right now I'm preparing the sauce for the Brussels sprouts. So like I said, we use a little bit of tamari. I put some honey and sriracha in there, and then we also do plenty of garlic. And so I let that kind of thicken up for a little bit, again, while the Brussels sprouts are in the oven. And then we take them out after roasting for about 15 minutes, toss it in the sauce, put it back in for another 5 to 6 minutes, and they are awesome. I love it. Again, as far as tracking macros for this stuff, I don't care about the tamari, don't care about the garlic. The one thing that you should be conscious of is the amount of honey, because honey is a lot of sugar naturally. I put about a tablespoon in there for the entire batch of Brussels sprouts, and that makes a ton. So I will just add, as far as on my macros, I will add like a 1/4 tablespoon of honey to the big portion that I eat. Taylor is making the sauce right now for the green beans, a little bit of tamari, and he does a lot of garlic. He looks like he put a big chunk of Smart Balance. So Taylor can't eat dairy, so he uses Smart Balance for stuff. From my opinion, that he put way too much in. I did not know he was making the green beans like that, so we gotta talk to him about that. But he tosses them with all that stuff, and then he tops it off with steak seasoning. It is my favorite way to eat green beans. So a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of butter, Smart Balance, and then tossed with steak seasoning. We're back to the Brussels sprouts. They roast in the oven for a little bit. Tossing it in that sauce that we just made, the honey, sriracha, and garlic. And then we're gonna put it back in the oven to finish roasting so all those flavors really get cooked into everything. And then we are gonna finish making the base for that Nacho Bake. So the meat is cooked with the peppers. I'm adding the corn, green chilies, and we're gonna add some salsa on there. And then we also put a little bit of Greek yogurt to make it creamy. And this stuff is really good. This is the first time I've ever had this recipe. And I'm using measuring cups for everything. And I love these recipes from the RP book because they tell you all the macros that are involved in all the recipes. So they basically give you like a little spreadsheet, and they tell you, okay, if you use, 4 pounds of beef or, this can of corn. Now, of course, you have to compare it to your actual ingredients to make sure that they line up. If they're a little different, let's say the brand of chips that I used had different macros from what their recipe called, then I'd have to make the adjustments accordingly. But it was pretty accurate, so I didn't worry too much about making up for the difference in macros. It was pretty much the same from the brands I used compared to the brands that they used. So you do your first layer, and then what you do is you're gonna sprinkle the crumbled blue chips on top, put a layer of cheese on there, and then you do your last layer of the remaining ground beef and corn mixture, and then you bake it in the oven. And I'm not sure what time of day I'm gonna make this, or eat this rather. I just saw the recipe, it looked good. It had plenty of carbs and protein and healthy fats in there. So I figured this could be like a quick, small afternoon meal, after our workouts, before we start coaching classes again, where we have to eat quickly, but can't really sit down and have this very involved meal. It does not look beautiful by any means. It kind of looks nasty, but it is really, really, really good. And so this recipe, they recommended you can cut it up into 4 or 8 portions. Just follow the recipe and divide it up by however many portions, and that is how you calculate the macros for each portion that you eat. And the ever messy kitchen of food prep. It's like a disaster every time, but it's totally worth it. So here's the end result, most of the stuff. Well, this is actually the day after. It's morning. So what I didn't get to show you guys last night for food prepping is after everything's cooked, how do I ration out? How do I separate it? What do I do? And so there's basically 2 methods that you could use. You could either put everything in really large containers and keep like your starch separate, your vegetables separate, your proteins, things like that. And then either the day of or the night before, ration out all the meals that you need for the day, put them in separate containers, take them, eat them, and you just do it day by day. Or you can take the time to measure out and separate and portion all of your meals for, however many meals you cooked for. So, I cooked for about 2.5, maybe 3 days worth. Again, that wasn't all the food that we're eating. We have plenty of other meals that we have. We have, shakes that we make, salads that we make our own breakfast. But I actually chose to separate everything and measure it out last night. So I had like this kind of assembly line going of using the food scale. I measure out how many grams of jasmine rice, grams of protein. And so as far as your protein, okay, so people ask me this all the time. Do you weigh protein before you cook it or after? So ideally you want to weigh protein before you cook it because it will lose a lot of its weight as you cook the food. But here's the thing. I cook in very big batches. I'm not super concerned about being a little inaccurate because I am not looking to get to, a ridiculous extreme goal of super lean body fat levels or anything like that, right? I'm just trying to manage my body composition. I'm trying to eat enough food to make me feel great so I can, work out hard and recover well, and things like that. So for me, I just apply a cooked multiplier to my meat as I'm weighing and measuring because we do cook so much of it at a time. I don't want to do a bunch of math. I'm not concerned if it's a little off. It's fine. In the grand scheme of things, you'll be fine if you do this. So for the chicken, what I do is I apply a 1.4 multiplier to the chicken. So I cooked all the chicken, and as I'm weighing it out, let's say it pops up as 3 ounces on the scale. I will multiply that 3 times 1.4, and that's the actual ounces of chicken that you should be putting in your MyFitnessPal, or as far as like writing down the nutrients, macros, and calories for. So you apply that meat, cooked meat multiplier to it. For red meat, it varies based on how well you cook it. I can list below in the About section on the YouTube channel kind of the meat multipliers that I use or suggest using that, may come in handy for you. But that is it for Meal Prep Sunday. Again, sorry I didn't wrap up last night. It got kind of late and started cleaning, and I just didn't really feel like filming again. But it's Monday morning. Unfortunately, my son is home sick today, so I'm home with him catching up on a lot of things. But thank you so much for watching. I'm really looking forward to making these on a regular basis. And let me know if you have any questions or any specific things you want me to talk about or make videos about. I'd love to see, new recipes. So if you're on Instagram, make sure you follow me and then tag me in your stuff. I'm always looking for good recipes because I believe in having a really big variety of vegetables and meats and mixing things up and not eating the same thing all the time. So tag me, BarbellBombshell, in your Instagram post. I love to see what you guys are making. But that is it for this video. So I will see you on the next one, and don't forget to subscribe. See you guys.